Hello and welcome to C2C Express TV. My name is Clemens, Shady Duck 1979, and tonight we are going to have a little fireside chat. Tonight, my first Cannonball. It was a week before the run, and I had no co-driver. I'd mostly decided at this point, worst case, I'll go it alone. I had already done too much to stop now. No big deal. But then, I got a message from Rob Pickup. We talked and came to an understanding about how we wanted a run to go. He had very similar thoughts on how to do this thing and similar sensibilities. Next thing I know, he's in, and we discussed the final particulars just before a friend of mine got married. As in, I gotta go, they're walking down the aisle right now, moments before. Friday before the run rolls around and I pick him up at the airport. First time I had met him. We go to the hotel, and after situating ourselves in our rooms, we discuss final strategies in Barnes & Noble. We check and recheck the car. Everything's working, except for now the auxiliary fuel gauge doesn't work. There's not really anything I can do now. The car has an odometer, and I know how long it takes to transfer to the main tank. Saturday morning, we gorge ourselves in the breakfast buffet and recheck everything. It's game day. We head to our rooms to call loved ones and rest until our late checkout. Didn't exactly work, neither one of us rested. But 4 p.m. rolls around and we meet in the lobby. It's time to roll. I decided while we were out to go get some fuel injector cleaner to help out the sensor in the main tank. I'd become obsessed with fuel gauges after having one fail, so a little fuel injector cleaner couldn't hurt. We stopped at Walmart and loaded up on snacks for the run. After that, we filled up the fuel tanks with fresh fuel and went to meet with Dave Collins. During our time at Good Wives, we enjoyed a gourmet meal of Stop and Shop hoagies. We hung out there until it was time to roll out at 8 p.m., except we didn't. An accident on the way to the Tappan Zee was going to throw us, and we decided to wait until it cleared to leave. I set up the Garmins to record our times. All was well, they were ready to go. I was going to run setup on the scanner in the ALP again 15 minutes before departure. Scanner because I didn't want to leave anything to chance with the internal memory. ALP for the same reason, and to be sure the latest and greatest software was in, just in case there was an update. After that, set the Garmins and we can go. The accident clears an hour later. It's time to get set up, but there's a snag. The Garmin suddenly won't charge on the USB, and I can't find the plug-in charger that I had at the hotel. Thankfully Dave had one, and we charged it up. They charge via USB just like they did before. It's time to go. I start setting up. Problems again. I clearly deleted the wrong app for my V1. The larger Garmin stopped charging again. The cigarette lighter in the module doesn't work, but I did find my charger. So I fixed the cigarette lighter, plugged the charger, and the big Garmin is good to go. I set the Garmins up to be ready, reinstall JBV1, and start the scanner on learning again. All is now well. Garmins are prepped, JBV1 is rolling, but now the IR camera stopped working. Fix that, we're ready to go. I find and start playing the opening credits from Cannonball Run. Rob runs down to the dumpster and puts on a sticker, and I drive the car down. Ready to go, better late than never. Pictures are taken of the start, 10 p.m. rolls around, and I stand outside the car, waiting, knowing I'm going to be sitting for a while. Rob takes the start picture with a timestamp, starts a stopwatch, and hops in the car. We're off. Dave runs along with us until we split off. Rob reiterates that we need to maintain safety while going through traffic, as I was a bit overzealous taking us out. This is a long drive. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We get out of Connecticut and into New York, and traffic is starting to thin out. It looks like we can start going a little faster. Now's the time to set the pace for the run. I start getting a hard miss while running. It was intermittent, so my first thought it was the injector cleaner running through the system. No big deal. Next, A light pops up on the dash. I had expected a check engine light due to the very large evap leak I created by installing the fuel cell, but not a random light. Hindsight being what it is, the light should have been obvious, but at the time it wasn't. Rob looked it up while we drove. The misfire was also getting worse, so we decided to do an unscheduled stop in Pennsylvania at a gas station. While we looked up what it was, I checked all the fluids, made sure all the coils were secure and all the plug wires were on. Everything was good. The light happened to be for coolant level. No big deal, it's full, let's go. We fuel up, double check the fuel economy, and it's right as we expected. Rob went to change the display on one of the Garmin's from route to stats, only to discover that the data was all wrong. Moving time, average, etc. was all way out for no apparent reason. Upon checking the second Garmin, the same thing had happened. Both are now no use whatsoever for overall route stats and data, which was their primary purpose. Then Rob checked an independent tracking app, which had performed flawlessly on the C2C Express, only to find that it had also stopped working. Now pretty much all of the big picture data was gone. Calculations would have to be done the old-fashioned way with a calculator and a pad of paper. Check engine light comes on. Fantastic. I check it while we're driving. Cylinder 8 misfire. I wish that had happened before we stopped. The car was starting to run worse. It's all I can do at this point to keep it running at slow speeds. And a cop pulls up behind me in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. Finally, we get back onto the highway, and the car gets better at speed. So I automatically assume that it's just the cleaner fouling something up, and it'll pass. Felt like every 30 seconds on my radar detector went off with K-bands that was possibly a real hit, or possibly a sign. Car felt better, but not 100%. I could only run at about 65% of my possible speed consistently, which is around 100 miles an hour. At this point, we figure we're way behind the goal speed. Not that there's much I can do about it until, miraculously, when I transfer fuel from the cell to the main tank, the car starts running great. I get after it. First scheduled fuel stop. I fuel up while Rob runs in to use the restroom, and I run in after he finishes. Car feels the same. At this point, I'm starting to wonder if the fuel I got in Darien was contaminated with water. We're on 2-ish fuel stops. The cleaner has to be through at this point, and I don't see anything mechanically wrong. It's Rob's first time behind the wheel, and the car's manageable. Not perfect, but he's living with it like I was. It started acting up after the last stop. Only now, it was the dash that was failing. We had no gauges, no instruments. I do some reading. Apparently this is a known issue that won't leave us stranded, so we press on. He finishes up Ohio and starts cutting through Indiana. The car's starting to run pretty good, and thankfully gets some real speed out of the car, around 80% if possible. I did my best to take a nap. It didn't really work, and it was all nerves at this point. I was starting to wonder if we were even going to finish. The car started running even worse than it had before, just past Indianapolis. Where before when the car wasn't running great, but it was comfortable at 65% of speed, now it's barely able to do 60%, about 70 miles an hour. Even putting your foot to the floor resulted in little or no acceleration. My first thought, it had to be something simple now. All the fuel was through it, the cleaner was through it, and my second thought was, I hope I don't have to bring it to Travis like so many did during the C2C Express. We had no choice now but to pull over for yet another unscheduled stop in a gas station. I take a look under the hood, start checking plug wires again. Now, all the coil packs are loose. I grab tools, tighten them all down, and the car starts up easily for the first time. I assume at this point the vibration from the engine had loosened them all up. Now it's time to roll. Only now do we fully feel and appreciate how much power and performance we've been missing. Rob is killing it in this stint. The car is running great and the roads are clear. An excellent combination. Indiana is gone. Illinois was dealt with quickly. thanks to a bit of help from our eye in the sky, Rob Zappa. On to Missouri, where we took an ever so slight accidental detour and ended up under the arch, where I managed to grab a great picture. As wrong turns go, it wasn't so bad. Course correction didn't really make us lose time, maybe a minute or two. Next scheduled fuel stop, it was my turn to drive. Car stumbled ever so slightly when we left, but immediately cleared up. Car was running fantastic. Shortly after I get into Oklahoma, there's traffic just heavy enough that I can't get very good speed. No drama in the car, just traffic. Then we run into an overturned truck in Oklahoma City, right on the ramp we needed to get to Texas. But once we get past this, it's smooth sailing. I get it going at a decent speed while Rob slept. I hit some stop traffic at a zipper merge in Texas and decided now was a good time to pull over. In an impossible statistic, the stop saved us a bit over 10 minutes. On top of that, we got a stretch, a bathroom break, and I filled the coolant reservoir all the way to the top to get rid of our spare coolant. Swapped in some new fuses for the instrument cluster, and we were back on the road. Another scheduled fuel stop in Texas. It's time for a driver change, and oddly it was the same one Rob used during the C2C Express. We gas up and hit the road hard. There's no traffic at all, and Rob took full advantage. We're cruising at 80 to 100% of possible, finally. After the sun went down, I finally made the effort I should have after my first stint to make a nap. This was the run we should have had in Pennsylvania. There was a realization that we need extra fuel because of the speeds we were going. So instead of a full stint, we decided to split it up. We fuel up in New Mexico near the Arizona border, and Rob falls asleep really quick. I'm taking advantage of whatever speed I can do. Roads weren't great, especially in Arizona, and the exhaustion had set in. I was moving along, having a tough time keeping my eyes open, and then I saw a sign for Winslow, Arizona. While chatting with Rob Zappa earlier, he had gotten that song stuck in my head. So I decided that a quick stretch would do me some good, and why not take pictures standing on a corner in Winslow, Arizona. Rob had no idea what was going on. I deliriously told him what I was doing, but he had no idea. He didn't know the song, and before we knew it, I had the picture and was back in the car ripping up the highway. I was still exhausted, even with a second wind. I'm cruising at 80% when I leap out of my seat and grab the full beam lever like my life depended on it, because I had just seen an enormous black panther leap across the road. I brake so hard so as not to hit my new imaginary friend and right in front of us, and Rob was shocked awake. I told him that I saw a giant black panther crossing the road, and he calmly replies with, "How about I drive?" "Yes," I replied. We switched drivers and immediately fall into a very deep sleep. I'm startled awake, hard on the brakes, as we sail past an Arizona sheriff, and I see our speed on the GPS is 139. "Where's the effing kill switch?" he shouts. He kills the brake lights and slows down. The sheriff saw us going fast, but didn't get a reading thanks to the jammers. Nor could he see us slow down. He paced us for what seemed like an eternity, then gave up. Back to sleep I go. Apparently, Rob tries to wake me up to look for the next fuel stop, as the little fuel light had come on. He tries and tries. Finally, I open my eyes, just barely able to process what he's saying, find a suitable stop, and then accidentally fall right back asleep. He wakes me again. This time I stay awake and guide him into a nice fuel stop. He was just as exhausted as I was. We used a lot of fuel because Rob was killing it, making up time. My turn to run. I'm awake and ready. We still need a splash and go just before California. So I stop, get a coffee, top off the tanks, and we're off. The ride was uneventful until Barstow, and after that the traffic was just ridiculous. So completely normal for LA. After 2.5 hours in traffic, we're off the highway, and finally a few miles from the end. The exhaustion's gone. Now it's just go, go, go. I am on it as hard as I can, trying to get through. 3 lights from the entrance to the marina, I can see the Portofino. I go to go around somebody at a light. They punch it, then they hesitate. I do the same. But they stop, and I punch it again, and I hear a bang. All of a sudden, the car is free revving. We both look at each other in horror, thinking, oh my God, did we just blow up the car within eyesight of the finish? My first thought is, I'm on a hill. I can just roll it right in there. My second thought is, crap, I'm driving this home. My wife is flying in tomorrow. So I quick think, put it in park, put it in drive, see what happens. Car runs fine. So I go as quickly as I can into the Portofino, stop, Rob hops out, takes the picture. At this point I'm thinking to myself, we're well over 40 hours. We were stopped for so long that there's no way we had anything even approaching a respectable time. Then he hits me with it. 37 hours, 13 minutes, and 36 seconds. I want to be disappointed in the time, but with all the problems we had, to make it and still have a really good time was incredible. I had gotten a call from Ben Wilson, and he told me that 500 and some people had orbited the planet, and around 200 had done what I just did with Rob. And it was a very humbling experience. Also, there's a lot of people who stop during Cannonball, and that's not something that should be done. The goal is to finish. The goal is to do it, not do it for any specific time. In my eyes, if you do a run and you have a hiccup and you don't get the time you want because of that hiccup, and you stop because of that hiccup, you've already lost. Finishing is the goal. The time is not. That's all for tonight. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and be true to your school. Good night.